Good evening, everybody. We talk about cloud. I thought there is going to be cloud burst today. The reason is I never seen a conference to start in time. Especially in Delhi, I was told about the broad timing. When the invitation says 6 o'clock, if you go to 6 o'clock, nobody will be there in the broad. I'm extremely thankful to all the participants to start in time. I just want to share our experience as a user in the big public sectors, how the cloud technology is going, what's our experience, what impediments, what constraints we face today. As our respected Satyanarayan have rightly said that the government's help, how we can move and accelerate the process of adapting cloud computing. If you look at our business, like an oil business, we are really complex business. If you really look at that, we do a transaction of almost about 3 crores of rupees every month, every minute. That type of infrastructure, IT infrastructure, we are using annually. It is because we use a single server ERP systems which is across India, more than about 18 locations, 10 refineries, large pipeline network. A couple of years back, when we started talking about technologies, we never thought that we will be able to use cloud computing as early as possible, because as everyone talks about, the system was still cloudy. There are issues related to security, related to governance, related to interoperability. We thought that we should have a roadmap, how we will be able to accelerate and adapt the technology as and when the technology gets matured. When you do the portfolio analysis, we found out certain applications probably would not be possible to go at all. Something like ERP applications. Though the vendors claim that it can go on cloud, but we still feel it is not possible to go, not because of the core ERP architecture, because satellite applications. As Mr. Sadhana rightly said, the protocols which need to talk to various satellite applications are yet to get matured. Then we thought that why don't we go something like mail applications. But when we saw the mail applications, we saw that there are still government guidelines to say that mail servers have to be in India, at least for the public sector companies. So probably we need to really look into that, how we take care of it. That's why when we have a company, we have joint sector companies, we started adapting the mail systems because they are not purely any public sector companies. We started going on mail applications on the cloud, which I find is really useful because it's having its own, not only financial prudence but also the elasticity in terms of requirements, in terms of comforts, in terms of very skilled, low skill requirement. And we are also thankful to NIC. We recently went for the e-procurement, which is totally operated by NIC. It was really very good experience for us. Compared to our peer industries, we probably would have gone and adapted our own ERP system for e-procurement. We thought of the new systems, probably tried that. We use NIC's e-procurement site, which is totally on cloud technologies based on internet technologies. Based on the per-use concept, metric systems is absolutely giving the total leverage of technology and benefit to us. More than that, being an oil company, sales company, we don't need to worry about what is CVC guidelines, what is the DIT guidelines. As and when the guidelines comes, the experts there to take care of it. And takes care of certification in terms of cloud and security. They will very, I think, that's what the technology is going to us. So once the technology starts getting mature, probably we need to worry about that. So we will concentrate our core business. So this business can be definitely work on cloud and we can continue to go about that. But if you really look at the impediment today is, when we go for the cloud, how will we ensure that I'm going to not depend on the only on single vendor? We have to follow certain government guidelines, the transparency in procurement. One system is over, is it possible for me to commit my cloud present system to somebody else? There is absolutely no migration strategies. What will be my data protections? How I get my data back to me? Then what are the privacy issues? Though we have the IT Act, if somebody else is doing outside the country, whether he is punishable, whether he can stand it, these are the issues to us. Then comes, as I rightly said, that communications between the other systems. The framework related to protocols, related to various satellite systems. For example, we talk about ERP, we need to talk about more than about 200 locations of the different multi-vendor process control systems. your systems or in cloud, what happened to other systems? How will you be able to do that? These are the technology issues which will, I'm sure once it comes back, will get merged. Second thing is, whatever we talk about APEX and CAPEX, but in all cases not happening. So we already invested in a large investment in the existing IT systems. Just for the sake of cloud, we cannot go ahead with that because it's not very economic. Whenever the new application comes, depending on the application, the cost benefit has to be again worked out and to go. So the selection of the portfolio plays more important than anything else. I think other things will come back again. The way you thought about the legal framework and institutional framework, I'm sure it's going to help us to accelerate our rapid deployment of cloud technology. That's what we feel of saying.
Thank you so much. I thank the panel for their first round of comments. Now, if I just try and quickly, arrive at a gist of what is being discussed. There are two things that are coming across as far as I'm concerned. One, there is one school of thought which says that technology is no longer a puzzle as such, and what is essentially a puzzle is to create a robust institutional framework to go ahead and ensure that there is interoperability between various departments of the government. So essentially it's about making sure that one arm of the government talks to the other. That's one school of thought, that's one point of view. The second point of view, which has been essentially brought about by Mrs. Verma and Mr. Ramaswamy, is a note of caution. And they've brought in issues of privacy, they've brought in issues of transition, saying that how do you go about accounting for present IT infrastructure, especially when you have already invested in it, and how do you transition to cloud. So these are the two schools of thought. Now, since Mr. Krishnan is the one full representative of the government of this particular panel, I would like to ask Mr. Krishnan a question, saying that if the issue is one of interoperability as far as the government departments are concerned, in terms of ensuring that the government departments start talking to each other, what do you think needs to be done? How do you ensure that the government departments start talking to each other? Is it more of a capacity deficit within the government, wherein there are some pioneers like you, Mr. Satyanarayana, who understand the larger implications of adopting cloud, but somewhere down the line, not everyone in the government understands the implications. Mr. Krishnan, do you want to use this?
Yeah. It is talking to each other is a very broad. Specifically, when we say institutional structure, legal framework, it is that people have to come together to decide to share. I mean, the sharing thing has to be promoted. Sharing for a given goal. Sharing not just for promoting cloud. There is nothing. In fact, when we made our first paper, even in BIT when we made, we never spoke about cloud. We don't want to talk about cloud. We only want to talk about shared platforms. Cloud is incidental. Cloud will happen. If 5 of us decide that we have to share a server and we have to keep scaling up, today the best way to do it is cloud. What is the other way? What do you have to say? Okay. So, but have you come to a structure that you are thinking of deciding to do that? No. So you have to come to do that. So what are the things required for that? You create the demand. That's what Mr. Kanaya said. You create an ESG bill. You create a demand out there for immediate rollout of services. When that demand is there, automatically, some of these things fall into place. Right? Now, coming back to some of those issues which, note of caution. I am very, at one level, I am really scared about this note of caution. It will kill. I have seen so many people. Today, whenever we talk about cloud in the government, the first thing anybody wants to say is, what about security? He doesn't know anything about security. Absolutely doesn't know, and but it's the easiest thing to say. And tomorrow, when you move a note sheet inside the government, the easiest thing to write there is to just write like 2 lines. Once you write those 2-3 lines, then another 6 months you say actually to take a few
Very well said.
All of that is government to run a simple application for something enormous. Today we are struggling even to do a simple testing on the cloud. There's nothing here. You're just testing even for that. So you have to be cautious about sounding cautious. Think. What And here, this is where I really feel, because in some of these discussions we had, people say, is there some framework, is there somebody in the government who can assure us that please, you can go this way. These are the things for which you can safely use the cloud. And that is where we look up to BI. If you can come up with some kind of a phased adoption. We say that at least on day one, can you try and use cloud for this? Can you use it for, say, for testing, for development, for certain things? Let's try it. In some area where they say this, and they lay down some accepted structure for security and privacy and all that. But this is what we are debating this. Once they do that, at least somebody in the field who wants to do it, he will not feel that tomorrow the audit is going to come after me or somebody is going to say. He will say, no, I am safe. But this DIT has said it, I am going by that. So today, even when we want to do it, they are looking around and saying, is there any framework? There is no framework. And you have so many naysayers about security and privacy. They are there. But can we have a phased strategy? Both sorts of issues. And that I think we need to do.
No, just extending that argument a little further, Mr. Rathan, I want to ask you something. When you're dealing with a private company, there is a certain overwhelming business logic. It's about achieving a certain degree of operational efficiency. It's about reducing your capital expenditure, reducing your operational expenditure, looking at the customer and trying to serve the customer till the last mile. What is the overwhelming logic of the government to go ahead and do that? Does the government have a customer focus? Is it more an issue of customer focus that needs to be brought in?
I think the logic in the government is far more evident than it is in the private. The point Mr. Satyanarayana mentioned about the outcome orientation. If we have to provide more services to citizens in a rapid manner, we have to share and collaborate. So my sort of appeal to everybody in the room would be that we push sharing and collaboration instead of pushing cloud, which may come with a lot of caution. And whether cloud or not, and I'm sure cloud will happen, but whether cloud happens or not is not important for the country. What is important is that improved citizen services need to happen. For that, sharing and collaboration is essential. And the best way probably today or tomorrow doing it today, tomorrow doing it is cloud. So that will come in automatically. But flogging the sort of cloud or cloud as we keep it, we probably put the cart before the horse.
But how do you tackle issues of jurisdiction, as Mrs. Verma talked about? How do you tackle the fact that I am willing to host you, but I am not willing to take anything from you?
The issue is, that's exactly what I'm coming to. We need to help everybody understand the benefit of providing faster services. By faster I mean you'll be able to get to e-governance faster, you'll be able to provide so much more services. That barter thing, whichever manner, there's so much to do. If that comes in first, if the urgency that I need to provide so much services in this time frame, the Electronic Services Act, all of that, the single point objective as Mr. mentioned about driving out. This is an essential component for that. If you push this ahead and the outcome orientation is not there, this will also not be.
What we are saying on institutions, for example, for my project today, what we are doing, if only NIC had a service and said, if you want any computing capacity, just specify all this and come and take from it. We'll be thrilled, we'll line up. We'll just line up. It's such a need, but it is not there. There is no structure, there is no entity which is able to assure and say, I am providing, it's a simple, it's a government order, you just sign, you come, you take, you come and take. But it is not there, we are not, and it's not such a simple thing. It takes, as I was saying, it took 18 months for us to create an entity which can be, trusted by all the states and which can host some shared programs and services. So although it appears trivial to people from the private sector, maybe, but it is not so trivial, because when you say 35 states have a separate, there's a state list in the constitution which gives them sovereign authority for all the subjects. I mean, they are very much concerned with it, and it's not a trivial issue. So, this state structure, if we ensure an entity of such a thing, if we do it for cloud and all these things, it will be probably one of the first such things which we do in the country, sharing across. It's so important from a governance perspective. See, it's not just technology, it's so important from governance perspective.
And the big business driver in GST was that it will boost tax refunds.
Correct.
The moment we have collaborated information about a dealer across all 35 states sitting in one server, the ability of the government to look through all the transactions in a transparent manner and increased level of compliance was very, very high. One of the key things I think is brought about all the states together in going ahead with this was an increased tax rate.
Every domain is there. Every domain is there. Look at health, look at education, anything. You go and dig slightly, you will see that there is huge benefits of collaboration.
Correct.
Build on that and then you're correct.
I want to ask Mr. Srivastava a question. Mr. Srivastava, you've been in the private sector for so long, and you've seen, I'm sure you've seen successful models and you've seen some failures too. What do you think is a successful model for a public-private partnership model? What kind of a model do you think will work, where the private sector can contribute effectively to what the government of India is trying to do? Mrs. Verma has said that the private sector doesn't have enough capacity as far as data centers is concerned, as far as cloud computing capacity is concerned. So how do you look at that?
One is, of course, before Mr. Satyanarayan leaves, let me just mention that it looks like what everybody is saying, that actually they do want you to be the deity that gives the benediction. So everybody can implement, provide the framework. But just to come back to your question, I think in terms of infrastructure, there are organizations, not too many, but there are organizations that do have significant IT infrastructure here. So in some cases that may be a possibility. If you look at the large IT companies, they do have significant infrastructure, that's a possibility. Clearly, it can be in applications, because you do have many applications that you can have today that you can make outcome-based. Therefore, you can get others to invest and share it. But unless you solve the fundamental problems that we were listening to right now, the public-private partnership in this may be a second leap of faith. And the reality is exactly like they said, it's not about the cloud. It's about getting more efficient. It's about rolling out citizen services quicker, faster. It's about optimizing how much you have to invest in infrastructure. And the urgency and the need in government is far higher than it is in the private sector. So it's very much like people say on IT, that when you look at, in the old days people said, when you look at computerizing your operations, the biggest benefit actually comes when you start to do a proper logical system design and flow, and the computerization just brings 30%. That is incidental. So I think the biggest issue is the need that you mentioned, sharing. Cloud will flow. So my sense is I think we need to get that piece right. And there's enough to be avenues of public-private partnerships here. And enough companies in the private sector that will be happy to partner. But I think if we haven't solved the fundamental issues, all of this thing about caution. I mean, imagine what you'd say about caution the moment you get into public housing. So I agree with him. I think caution is not a word we should use today because it derails the basic issue.
This is one. My question is linked to what Mr. Krishnan was talking about, saying that today the concept of a security threat is used actively scuttle cloud computing. How do you respond to that?